This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your beautiful online presence and run your business. Hey, Marcus House with you here. Some delays this week on the flight of SpaceX's Starship serial number 11, which is hopefully going to take its flight within days now, but still loads to talk about with the Boca Chica science and upcoming prototypes, including the first fully stacked Super Heavy booster. Some fantastic news for Relativity Space this week with their first launch contract with the Pentagon, an amazing SLS hot fire, and updates as well on Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescope.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
So yes, history repeated itself a little again this week with static fire delays. The static fire test that was expected by the end of last week had issues related to ground support equipment, which delayed the event until Monday morning. The thought was that we could have a static fire and a potential flight within a few days after that. This plan quickly slipped as just milliseconds before SN11's first static fire, an abort was called right before full ignition, briefly leaving the rocket on fire. What happened here is that the Starship prototype momentarily ignited one or two of its three Raptor engines pre-burners, which is an initial step before igniting the main combustion chamber. On the plus side though, progress has already been made for the upcoming flight, with the Federal Aviation Administration formally authorising the flight early in the week. As stated here, the FAA found no public safety concerns with the initial SN10 mishap report that would preclude further launches. As a result, the FAA approved the license modifications for SN11 and authorised its flight. Hopefully that will be coming very soon now, so keep your eye on those launch notifications. Now, while on the topic of Starship flights, in case you had not spotted it, SpaceX released a new video of SN10's flight on Tuesday this week, and wow, there is some amazing new unseen footage worth touching on. This video shows footage from the onboard cameras themselves, adding a few new perspectives that we haven't seen. This shot here shows the terrific view of the forward fins controlling the vehicle on descent. Those heat shield tile attachment points that we can see there on the leeward side of the fin are shown in beautiful detail. Likewise, we see a view looking straight back towards the aft side of the vehicle. Again, we can see those heat shield tiles applied right there. I think the most noteworthy part of this footage though was the flip and landing, which certainly shows a great perspective of the rocket engines as it comes in for that landing. If we pause right here, you can see a little burst of green flame pop out of this shutdown Raptor. A clear sign, as Elon Musk said on Twitter, that the engine is burning internal components made of copper, typically not a very good thing. Also, another terrific view there of the landing legs that had not quite all locked themselves into place. Thanks SpaceX for again releasing this awesome footage. I was kind of hoping the explosion afterwards might be included, but all the same, terrific stuff. Now, for the first time ever, SpaceX has fully stacked a Super Heavy booster, essentially completing the assembly of the largest rocket booster ever built. Work remains, of course, to complete the assembly welding and fully connecting the plumbing and avionics. This massive beast consists of 37 steel rings and stands roughly 67 meters tall. Huge thanks to Boca Chica gal and Jack Bayer with NASA Spaceflight for the amazing and ever-increasing coverage this week. What was very interesting and shared by NASA Spaceflight was a SpaceX document which includes a lot of new information about their future prototype testing schedules. Now, up until this information was released, the thought was that booster number 1 here would take flight. Sadly though, that is not the case. Instead, it will now be rolled to the Starship's suborbital pad for ground testing only, including cryogenic liquid nitrogen tests and potential static fires. These tests will provide vital data ahead of booster number 2's test flight, which is currently planned to take to the sky. Booster number 1's test campaign is expected to occur just before SN15 goes to the pad for its test flight. Then, once SN15 is complete and begins its testing campaign, the beginning of what is likely to be a new high-altitude test campaign will begin, involving 3 Starships with SN16 and 17 joining along. Now, this is a similar structure, I guess, to what we've been seeing with SN8 right through to SN11, targeting targeting the complete medium altitude testing campaign. If these tests are successful, it is possible that SpaceX will skip SN18 and 19 and go straight to attempting an orbital flight test involving Super Heavy BN3 and Starship SN20 with a goal to get to orbit by July 1st. That is a crazy test campaign, even if it remotely turns out to be true. Now, a huge amount of work is also taking place over at the orbital launch site, which will obviously be utilised for the orbital Starship testing campaign. This site will eventually host 2 Super Heavy mounts according to a document that we talked about more in depth in last week's episode. The first mount is nearly complete and is awaiting its launch table. The construction of the huge integrated tower that will include a crane to lift and mate Starship with the booster has also begun construction, seen in a picture by RGV Aerial Photography's photos here. And yes, Elon's crazy idea of catching the booster out of the air, eliminating the need for landing legs, is a core focus, as crazy as that currently sounds. SpaceX sure does have a habit of making the crazy possible. Additionally, more pile driving occurred near the orbital launch pad, and this new driving could possibly be for additional commodity storage for the pad, as it's right next to the ground support equipment and tank farm. So we are currently working on our model of the launch site itself, similar to the construction site that we showed the other week. It is still a work in progress, and everybody really loved our breakdown of the construction yard a few weeks back, so we thought we'd continue with that idea here. Thanks a heap to everyone for the terrific feedback on that segment. All of you out there subscribing, liking and sharing makes such a huge difference to us here, rapidly coming up to that 300,000 subscriber mark, and that is all because of you right there. Thank you very much. Now, regarding future Starships, SN15 is currently in the mid-bay, awaiting its turn to enter the high bay for nose cone stacking. The massive Bluezilla crane was rolled to the build site at the start of the week to receive a luffing jib extension to finish BN1 stacking. Then on Thursday, shortly after seeing this amazing shot here by Austin Barnard, we also got this magnificent perspective from Elon Musk showing the full extent of BN1 right up the high bay and all the way out through the hole made for the crane there. This is the first big step towards making Starship fully orbital, so we've got to take a look now at what they are doing in regards to the re-entry thermal protection systems. The patches of the thermal protection system tiles on current and previous Starship prototypes have been used to test how the material and its attachment points react during propellant loading and flight stresses. With these future orbital Starships such as Starship SN20 and beyond, the vehicle's entire windward side should be applied with those heat shield tiles. That is certainly going to be required for missions that will see Starships return from space and endure that extreme re-entry heating. Now, just stop and think about this for just a moment. This will be the most massive vessel to ever attempt an orbital re-entry with the intention to land and be reused. The Space Shuttle of course did this as well, and it was still quite a large vessel, but Starship is much larger again. One of the big issues with the shuttle's heat protection system was its complexity. The very intricate layout of the heat shield tiles here was extremely expensive to maintain. In many areas there were no 2 tiles the same size, and this made it a monster job to construct the vessel and maintain it. Now, comparatively, the Starship tiles we see here in this great piece of footage by Jack are made to be the same size and are very quick to apply. We have seen different sized tiles in various tests as well, but we would assume that SpaceX will either settle on one size or even perhaps a few standard sizes for coverage of more intricate areas. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a near complete coverage of thermal protection system tiles even before SN20, as it would make even more sense to test a more complete system prior to tests at orbital re-entry speeds. Now, while we're talking about future orbital Starships, it's important to add that a test mount for Starship's vacuum Raptors was spotted and installed to a practice rig. We'll talk about that more in a moment, but just quickly, a huge thank you to Squarespace today for their support of this video. Squarespace is a terrific all-in-one platform to set up an online presence quickly and easily to promote your business, your brand, or your product. It is so simple to get started as well, with a load of great templates to choose from, all categorized to make the selection process really fast. You just pick the one that appeals to you the most, and that is it. You now have a website structure instantly ready for your content. A great feature that I've been finding useful as well is the added email campaign system that is available by Squarespace. That allows you to automatically gather and communicate with your followers. When creating email campaigns for them, just like with the website templates offered, there is an email template selector to get you started. You can also instantly support your cause with the integrated funding options provided that connect in with PayPal, Apple Pay, Stripe, and more. If you want to check it out for yourself, just head to squarespace.com/MarcusHouse and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You'll find that link in the description below. So yes, back to the test mount for the Starship's vacuum Raptors. 3 of these mounts will be placed around the dome, which was left over from the planned SN14 test article. These Raptors have a higher specific impulse in vacuum conditions than the sea level engines which have been used on Starship flight tests up to this point. These need to be utilised to place Starship into orbit and for other burns to go to the Moon or Mars. The known efficiency target for those vacuum engines is a specific impulse of around 380 seconds, which is far higher than the sea level engines optimised for lower altitudes. Now, for those that are not familiar with specific impulse, it's essentially a measurement of efficiency comparable, I guess, to miles per gallon or kilometres per litre, so the higher the better. At the construction site, major tent expansion is also underway at the nose cone assembly tent, also known as Tent 3. We have some updates finally with the test tank SN7.2, which is made from the thinner 3mm steel. This was rolled out of the launch site and back to the construction site for unknown reasons. It was assumed that a final test would take place where they purposefully fill and pressurise the tank beyond limits until it bursts. However, it seems like this is not the case anymore. Is it possible that repairs are being made to it before a more complete test to destruction, or is this the end of the road for SN7.2? Let me know what you think in the comments below. So along with all of the other Starship updates for the week, I've just got to drop some teasers for an epic first collaboration between Neopork, Corey and Alex Svan, and from what I've seen so far, I think it is going to blow everyone's minds. What they are working on is an animation project that will push all of their limits. Neopork here focused primarily on rocket modelling and detailed texture work, Corey doing the bulk of the rigging animation, and Alex supplied his insane Raptor engine models, which he has reworked to be more animation friendly. None of this would have been possible without the amazing reference photos and videos from everybody that is down capturing footage and photographs from Boca Chica. This is what we are always talking about, team space. What the entire group can do collectively is just astounding. What is coming up here between Neopork, Corey and Alex in a dream team collaboration is some stuff that is going to be quite incredible. Make sure that you're following their Twitter accounts and YouTube channels because the hype is real for this next level stuff. I can't wait to see it. Now, we have a brand new record breaker from the Starlink mission early in the week, with booster 1051 becoming SpaceX's first 9th flight of the exact same Falcon 9 booster. Beautiful shots here of it by Greg Scott yet again. Thanks, Greg. This instantaneous launch window saw the booster set to be the very first to fly for the 9th time, with another 60 Starlink satellites on board for this, the 8th mission for 2021. This booster's previous launches were 5 Starlink missions, SXM7, RadarSat, and of course the Crew Dragon Demo 1 mission, which was carrying Ripley, a human-like test dummy, and a zero-gravity indicator in the form of a toy Earth. During these webcasts, I always love hearing about how Starlink is already having a positive impact, especially for remote communities. North Carolina announced recently that Swain County and Hyde County were now providing students with high-speed internet. Oracoke Island typically has adverse weather and flooding which impacts school attendance. Now, thanks to Dishy McFlatface here, high-speed internet is greatly assisting students in these communities. Just awesome news there. Now, with an on-time liftoff, this record-setting booster streaked its way to main engine cutoff in no time at all. The second stage separation was seamless, and some great visions here of the Merlin vacuum ignition and throttle up. With successful fairing separation, the satellites were well on their way to the drop-off orbit to begin their service life. After a successful entry burn, the glowing deck of the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, hinted that the booster was on target. Unfortunately, the camera link failed briefly, but here we go, the first successful return of a booster for the 9th time. This also marked the 77th recovery of a booster overall, and 65 minutes after liftoff, it was time to release another batch of 60 satellites, seen here slowly drifting away to complete yet another successful mission. It really is mind-blowing just how much mass to orbit SpaceX alone is punching out. As Elon tweeted this week, SpaceX alone put up double what the rest of the world did combined in 2020, with this year aiming for 300 to 400% more. That is a paradigm shift that is changing the industry very dramatically. Now, we also had the incredible SLS 8-minute hot fire occur on Thursday as part of the green run test of the core stage. This was essentially the last step before this stage will be sent to Kennedy Space Center to launch the Orion spacecraft on the Artemis 1 mission. This test completed the full duration hot fire after the previous attempt was cut short due to hydraulic system issues with one of the engines, which was exceeding the safety parameters. That only managed 67 seconds or so, well short of the time needed to complete the tests adequately. This Space Launch System core stage booster is of course built by Boeing and is fueled with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. These four RS-25 engines pack a massive punch at an estimated 1.6 million pounds of thrust, or just over 725 metric tons of force. NASA and Boeing should now have enough data to determine if it is ready to launch. That is going to be an incredible sight to see. That flight with an uncrewed Orion spacecraft is scheduled roughly very late this year or early 2022. Hopefully that remains on track. In some other topics, some fantastic news from our friends at Relativity Space this week. They have signed their first Pentagon launch contract. The Defense Innovation Unit chose Relativity Space as a launch provider for a small US military payload for 2023 using their Terran 1 launch vehicle. Terran 1 is due to make its first flight later this year from Cape Canaveral. Now, we have covered Relativity Space in past episodes discussing their pioneering manufacturing process of creating fully 3D printed rockets. Not only is Terran 1 in progress, but development is currently underway to create a fully reusable launch vehicle that is entirely 3D printed. This is dubbed the Terran R and will be a size similar to Falcon 9 as described by co-founder and CEO Tim Ellis as a natural evolution from the Terran 1. The big difference here is Falcon 9 is only partly reusable, whereas Relativity plans to build some pretty exotic products to pull off second stage reusability as well. Exciting stuff there, guys. As for landings, the Terran R may possibly use two landing options, either at a concrete pad or on a drone ship. These guys just blow my mind with their revolutionary approach to rocket construction and minimal individual parts required, as well as driving down the cost of launches for its current and future customers. With a Terran 1 launch in the vicinity of $12 million per launch, it will be capable of carrying 1,250 kilograms to low Earth orbit. The Terran R, on the other hand, will be capable of lifting over 20,000 kilograms compared to Falcon 9 at 22,800 kilograms to a low Earth orbit. If you imagine being a customer with a spacecraft needing a ride into orbit, trailblazing companies like Relativity will be strategically placed to offer very competitive launch options. Relativity's presence as a launch provider will greatly serve a market where it is forecast that there will be a launch shortage in the years ahead. That innovation just blows my mind, and developing or even making a change to a design in current aerospace factories is a very slow process, also involving others in the supply chain. With 3D printing technology, these designs and changes can happen much quicker. Congratulations once again to all of you there at Relativity Space on your first defense contract signing. Now, a few updates here on the Hubble Space Telescope. The 30-year-old marvel of science is once again back online after a software glitch put it into a safe mode just recently. The telescope was offline for 4 days as engineers diagnosed the issue as being caused by an upgrade which was uplinked to it. One of the gyroscopes had been causing some issues, and the patch unintentionally caused a wider issue with the onboard computer, resulting in it protecting itself on March the 7th. As fate would have it, this issue identified other areas needing attention, including the aperture door, which did not close as intended when a safe mode event is triggered. That door there protects the optics and instruments from damaging sunlight. The wide field camera 3 also suffered an as yet unspecified issue, and observations now remain on hold in that area. Hubble, of course, was launched in April 1990 and is showing its age with differing views now on how long it's going to be able to keep working. With no space shuttle to do some servicing as it's done in the past, they simply do not know how long Hubble is going to last. Any major problem at this point and its mission is all over. Thankfully though, there is the James Webb Space Telescope waiting in the wings. Granted, it has taken way longer to develop than anyone would have thought, over 20 years in fact, with its share of delays and issues ranging from technical, managerial and financial, then of course the general pandemic related delays as well. This has been a huge process, but this is one recent development that you may find surprising. Later this year, NASA plans to finally ship the telescope to its South American launch site via the Panama Canal. Interestingly, the agency staff are concerned a little about pirates. Yes, pirates. Not something that you would normally think would be a concern for space projects. I mean, we're not exactly talking about the peg leg and the parrot type pirate, but there could be people out there who are potentially entertaining the notion of hijacking the ship with its $10 billion cargo and then demanding a ransom for it. As a consequence of those thoughts, the exact shipping date will be held a close secret. Sure, the chances may be pretty remote, but when you are on the final leg of a 2-decade journey, you want to cover all contingencies, I guess. So yes, quite a busy week of space updates. Just remember as well that we are huge supporters of the transition to electric vehicles, and our partner EV offers the ability to hire an electric vehicle in Australia. Perhaps you have wanted to take an extended test drive. You could be touring the country and want to drive around in a Tesla. If that sounds appealing to you, you can use the link in the description for a discount. A huge thank you to my amazing patrons and YouTube members here. There is no way that we can continue creating content at this frequency and length without all of you. The support that you all here provide allows us to increase the time that we can spend, and that is all due to the growing list of people that we can see right there. Thank you to each and every one of you. As support increases, that helps the entire team, so if you like what we're doing and you'd like to join our awesome patrons here, head to patreon.com/MarcusHouse, or alternatively now you can join up as a YouTube member from the join button below. That gives you access to interact with me more directly via the linked roles on our Discord server. You can also have your name listed right here like all of these other amazing people, and you can also have earlier and ad-free access to the videos to watch before anyone else. Massive thank you as well to the incredible production crew assisting greatly with the creation of these very videos. If you're interested in these topics and you'd like to be a part of it, follow me on Twitter and please do get in touch. In the tile in the bottom left today, we have my video giving a rundown of the construction site. In the top right is my latest video, and in the bottom right, content that YouTube has selected from my channel just for you. Thank you everyone as always for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.